This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Interested in learning more about investing in startups, launching a new startup, and need to raise funding? The Startup Funding Espresso is a daily podcast in a short, concise format delivered to your inbox every day, Monday through Friday. In the time it takes to drink an espresso, you can learn about startup funding. To subscribe, go to investorconnect.org and put your email into the pop-up box. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Adam Hull, partner at Redbud Advisors. Redbud is the fulcrum to your wealth. They serve as wealth strategists and focus on winning relationships in all forms. Their ideal client makes a multitude of financial decisions in a day, week, and throughout the year. Redbud brings them the strategies needed to achieve their goals and serves as a thought partner, advocate, expert, advisor, and facilitator to ensure every decision is in support of the strategy. Like the fulcrum moves to keep things balanced, Redbud moves to ensure their client has constant balance. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Hall. Appreciate you having me.
So what was your background? What did you do before investing in startups?
Sure, thanks. So I've grown up kind of around a very small business. Kind of my second family that I grew up with owned a golf course, and I got to really see the human side to their business. They were my best friends, and they're still some of my closest friends to this day. And so I grew up around seeing not only the ups and downs of their business, but then also getting just to see that there's a family and there's humans behind these businesses. So, seeing customers come in and treat the business poorly, and and then some people treating and honoring and respecting the hard work, and seeing what behind the scenes and where you got to get your hands dirty and when you look put together and when there's all different aspects of the business. And so that's kind of where I fell in love with small businesses and people, the people connected to it. And my career, I've started and worked in for a small real estate developer, and then went to work for a single family office before doing what I do now, which started about 11 years ago, where I started working with more than one family office. So
great. Yeah. So how do you help startup and growth companies today?
Yeah, so I've got some clients that are a lot of my clients are heavily involved with investing in startup and growth companies across the board, really. And how I help them and how I help the investors primarily are making sure that there's alignment with the companies that they're investing in. So we take a deep level of care and time that we put into the process of, even when we look into work with we're looking to work with a family, we're very specific about who the families we want to work for, and helping them, making sure that we're aligned with them. And then we look to, when they look to invest in something, that make sure that there's alignment with the people. So like a quick example that I like to, or more of an analogy that I like to share with the families that we work with is, are these people that, we know every pro forma, every pitch deck, it's just a guess at the end of the day. It's a guess at whether or not this is going to work. There's good projections. There's all of this really good work put into it, but we know, like, once you really kind of hit the firing gun gets shot off and everyone's off to the races, there's so many ups and downs. And so are these people that you want to go into the trenches with? And that's a big filter that I have the families look through. Like, are these quality, is their character aligned with you? Is there something that you're concerned with? Are you afraid that they're going to be completely concerned with themselves or not consider their investors? All of these are there incentives aligned with you as an investor? Because you're taking a ton of risk with your capital. And so that's a main way that I kind of interact with startup and growth companies.
So what is the challenge for a startup and growth company? Can you give us more details?
Yeah, I think for them is really a huge challenge is that finding your investors. And so that's where I, again, kind of going back to what I say from my clients as investors in those small companies, is you want to see where you are in that capital stack, where you play a role, what value that you can add. And so a challenge from their perspective really is finding the quality investors that they know that those people are really going to want to get into the trenches with them and help them out, and not also just be concerned with their return, but also concerned with is their product something that is really valuable, and does it help bring value to society, or is it just a junk product or a junk idea? I think there's a huge level of conviction that people have around the dollars that they've earned and how they deploy those dollars. And so I think a lot of startup founders can have a ton of conviction around their idea, and oftentimes don't consider the conviction that comes with the LP and really what they're putting into it. And so, yeah, that's why I think alignment is critical.
And so how does a startup prepare for that challenge, or how do they achieve alignment before they go down the path with an investor?
I think it's really important to have a clear story about why they're doing what they're doing. So the right investors will come alongside that. So that's one of the first things that I look for when I'm advising the families when we're looking at a deal is why are these people in it? Are they in it just to make tons and tons of money? Some people are, and most of my clients aren't looking for those types of people that are just in it just to make, because they really, at the end of the day, believe that the scoreboard is at the end of the day, your balance sheet is not the scoreboard. Like, the scoreboard has a lot more to do with the impact you've had, the people the lives you've changed, the legacy that you've left. And so when companies are trying to have a huge impact on their community or people's lives, that right there, I think, is a good way for particularly the families I work with. A good way to prepare for that challenge is to know what you're about, why you're exactly doing it, and what impact do you hope to have with the product, and what problem are you trying to solve.
Well, great. Well, so who should the startup recruit to help with that challenge?
I think a startup would be really critical, and the ones that I've seen that have worked well are kind of the best relationships, is find a good mentor that is aligned well with you personally. So I've had some clients that do that they have really kind of gone to lunch and gone to coffee with somebody for a really long time. And so that person can help them hone in on the reasons behind their investment that they're making. And so find somebody who knows your story, knows your background, knows who you are when you're out of the office, which I know is very much meshed with home these days. But somebody that knows you on a deep, deep level and can help integrate your story into your business and help tell that story better.
Great. And so for the growth company, what are the must-dos that the CEO must pursue there?
Yeah, I think the CEO needs to have a clear conviction around their product and where they fit into the market. I think they need to network and connect with LPs that they know their story will resonate with. I think once you the way I've seen it work really well, where people end up raising money much quicker, is when they are able to break into some segment, just like their product might have. It is likely very niche-y, finding that within an LP base. So finding the people that know a lot about SaaS businesses, or know a lot about CPG, or they might know about whatever it may be, and break into that market. Find somebody who's kind of a stakeholder that will help tell your story and get really excited and get behind what you're up to, and throw a flag in the ground for you. And I think that's when it sets it off and creates wildfire on the funding side. So clearly economics have to be there. That's obviously, people aren't just going to throw money at when there's not any kind of incentive for them to do so. But again, I would just encourage startup founders and CEOs to, when they are raising money, to look for niches within LP bases.
So where do you see companies underinvest in their startup?
I think people underinvest in people. There's a lot of investment and also underinvestment in investor relations. So again, I'm very much on the human side of the business. I deal with families and the assets that they're entrusted with and trying to steward really well, right? So there are a ton of investments that I've seen that do have really poor communication with their LP base. They do not have good portals. I frankly, in full disclosure, I don't know how much I've seen various platforms there are to house subscription documents and statements and K1s and all of this, the various and sundry documents that we all know come with this type of investing. But if you're able to provide that for someone, it provides a level of transparency and communication to your LP that I think is a must today. They can find anything and everything about everybody today. And so they've brought their hard-earned dollars to you. I think people have, it's the right thing to do to provide really good, transparent communication with them, and it's easily accessible. So I've seen it where we're straining their staff to go and get these documents. Like, hey, we lost the subscription document, or we haven't seen statements for 2 years, or what kind of, we're looking for a random K1 because we're under an audit. So like we have all these weird issues that we have, but if you are from the get-go providing those documents in a nice, clean, easy to find format that like in leverage technology for your LPs, I think you're going to save time and money on your own and go focus on what you're really good at, which is building your business. So communication is key and critical to your LP base. So they start, honestly, people start asking questions like, what are they doing? Like, we haven't heard from them in a year. All we did get is the K1. Like, okay, like we don't really know that much about them. Like, over communicate and provide it and make it really easy for them to stay in touch with you.
So great. Well, in the last minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
Yeah, I think it's important for founders, for CEOs, for startup and growth companies to remember that there's a human side to their LPs, that they really care deeply about the money that they've invested, and to be really intentional about the LPs that they're looking for. Money is often very hard. People work really hard to make that money, and they're taking a huge risk, regardless of the check size that they're taking out. It still is a very, very important thing that they're putting a lot of trust in people. And so I would take a lot of care into and time and consideration into how you care for your LPs and how you select them on the front end, and align yourself with LPs that know you, that are really behind you as a human too, and not only just your product, but they also agree with your product, but they're fans of you as a human. And then they're also fans of your product and believe that it will actually have a benefit on society.
Great. Well, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Thanks, Hull. Yeah, the easiest way is by emailing me. It's Hull, like Hull of a ship, HULL at redbudadvisorsatx.com.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. Want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Hull.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.